What is this? The voice cut through the elegant concert hall like a blade. Dr. Catherine Ashford rose from her cushioned seat in the front row, her face twisted with shock and indignation. Security who authorized a foster child to enter this audition. The 17-year-old girl standing on the stage didn't move. Emma Rodriguez met the gaze of the most powerful woman in New York's classical music world without flinching. Around her, hundreds of eyes stared, glittering gowns, designer suits, watches worth more than Emma's mother had earned in her entire short life. "I have the right to audition," Emma said, her voice trembling but clear. The poster said, "Open to all talented young musicians. I qualify." Laughter erupted throughout the hall. Not friendly laughter, but the kind Emma had known for 17 years. The laughter of the privileged when they see someone daring to dream beyond their station. "My dear," Dr. Ashford said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "this audition is for serious students. Do you have any formal training? Can you read music? Do you understand basic music theory? I'm self-taught." "Ma'am?" The laughter grew louder. A woman in a Chanel dress whispered to her companion, loud enough for Emma to hear. "Self-taught on what?" A cell phone. Dr. Ashford signaled to security. "I'm sorry, but we can't waste the judge's time on—" "Give me 10 minutes. Emma interrupted, her voice harder than she thought possible. 10 minutes to play? If I don't convince you that I belong here, I'll leave and never come back. But if I play well, if I prove my talent, then you have to give me a fair chance like anyone else here." Tense silence hung in the air. Dr. Ashford stared at this young girl, evaluating, calculating. Then a slow, cruel smile spread across her face. "Very well. Let's see what the maid's daughter can do." What happened in the next 10 minutes didn't just silence a room full of skeptics. It shattered every assumption about talent, privilege, and where genius can be found. But to understand that moment, we need to go back to where Emma's impossible journey began. "I say to you, the year was 2007. A 5-year-old girl sat in the back of a police car, clutching a worn teddy bear, the only thing she was allowed to bring. Emma Rodriguez didn't understand why the officers were taking her away, only that her mother was going away and she had to live with a new family for a while. That while lasted 12 years. 12 years, 8 different families, 16 schools, countless nights lying awake in unfamiliar rooms, wondering why she was always the child no one wanted to keep. The first family, the Thompsons, returned her after 6 months. She's too quiet, Mrs. Thompson told the social worker, as if quietness was a defect that needed fixing. She doesn't mesh with our children. Perhaps she needs a more suitable environment. The more suitable environment turned out to be the Johnsons, until they moved out of state and couldn't bring her along. Then came the Garcias, where Emma learned that if she was good enough, quiet enough, took up little enough space, maybe they'd let her stay. They didn't. By age 11, Emma had learned life's most important lesson: never unpack completely, never put posters on the wall, never think of home as anything permanent. Because for kids like her, home was just a temporary stop between rejections. But then, on a winter night in 2011, in her 4th foster family, Emma found something that changed everything. The Martins were different from previous families. Mrs. Sarah Martin wasn't cold, she was just busy, with 3 biological children and a full-time job. Emma was number 4. Supplemental income. A moral obligation that Mrs. Martin fulfilled because it was the right thing to do. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. Nightmares about her mother, nightmares she still had even now, woke her at 2 a.m. She wandered down to the basement, where Mrs. Martin kept old belongings and things nobody used anymore. And there, in the corner covered in thick dust, stood an upright piano. Emma didn't know why she approached it. She'd never touched a musical instrument in her life. But something about the way moonlight streamed through the small window, reflecting off the dusty keys, made her reach out. She pressed one key, simple, cautious. The sound that emerged made Emma freeze. Not because it was beautiful, the key was out of tune. The tone harsh after years without maintenance. But because for the first time in her life, Emma felt like she'd spoken a word that others could understand. She pressed another key, then another. The sounds combined into something, not a melody, not harmony, but the beginning of a conversation Emma didn't know she'd been craving. That night, she sat there for 2 hours, exploring the keys, trying to figure out how to create sounds that made her heart feel less painful. The next morning, Mrs. Martin discovered her. Emma, you're not allowed in the basement alone. And don't touch that piano. It was my mother's. Very valuable. I'm sorry, Emma whispered. Head down. And just like that, she thought, the only door to something good had closed. But the next night she couldn't resist. She crept back down to the basement, more careful this time, and played more softly, trying not to make noise. And the night after that, and the next, for 3 months. Mrs. Martin didn't know that every night after the household went to sleep, Emma would slip down to the basement and lose herself in the world of keys and sounds. Emma started finding videos on YouTube at the public library. She watched pianists, studying how they position their hands, how their fingers moved. She borrowed books about reading music, trying to understand the strange symbols on the page. Each night, she practiced what she'd learned, her small fingers gradually finding their own path across the keys. Music became her secret, her private language, her place where, in a world that constantly rejected her, she could create something beautiful. Then after 6 months, the Martins announced they were moving out of state. You won't be able to come with us, Emma, Mrs. Martin said, her voice genuinely regretful. But we'll make sure you're placed with a good family. On her last night at the Martins, Emma went down to the basement one final time. She placed her hands on the keys and created a simple melody. Not perfect, but her own. It was goodbye. Thank you. A promise. I'll find you again, she whispered to the piano. Wherever I go, I'll find my way back to music. She didn't know the promise would carry her through 5 years of hell. Family number 5, the Hendersons, where Emma finally stabilized, if that word could apply. Mrs. Carol Henderson ran her foster home like a business. 5 foster children at once, each bringing in $800 per month in state subsidies. That was $4,000 monthly, steady income. As long as she kept the kids long enough and didn't let them cause trouble. Emma learned the rules quickly. Wake at 5:30 a.m. Prepare breakfast for the younger children. Go to school, come home and do chores, do homework, go to bed. Don't complain. Don't ask for anything, Absolutely don't cause trouble. You're the easiest one, Mrs. Henderson said once, her tone suggesting it was a compliment. Not like the others. Always demanding attention. You know how to stay quiet and work. I appreciate that. Emma didn't feel appreciated. She felt invisible. But there was one thing that kept her going. 3 miles away, at the Bronx Public Library on 149th Street. There was a piano in the community room. It was old, some keys stuck, but it was there, and every day after school. Emma found her way to that library piano room available for public practice from 3 to 6 p.m. The sign read, Emma arranged her life around those hours. She worked early shifts at the coffee shop on weekends, late shifts at the grocery store, but from 3:30 to 5:45 every weekday, she belonged to music. She taught herself to read music through library books. She watched hundreds of hours of videos on YouTube, concerts, lectures, tutorials. She learned pieces by Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, composers whose names she only knew from the internet but whose music spoke to her in ways that spoken language couldn't. The librarian, Mrs. Chen, an elderly Chinese woman, noticed her after a few months. You come here every day? Mrs. Chen said one March afternoon. You play from memory? No teacher number, ma'am, Emma replied, ready to be told to leave. To be told this room was for real students. But Mrs. Chen just nodded. Good. Self-teaching is harder. But you learn discipline, that's what matters. She paused. I also played piano when I was young. In China. Dreamed of becoming a concert artist. But life had other plans. From that day on, Mrs. Chen would occasionally sit and listen to Emma play. She wasn't a teacher, she couldn't afford to be, but sometimes she'd say, your finger here needs to curve more, or this wrist movement, too stiff. Relax. Those small corrections from a stranger at the library were all the formal instruction Emma ever received. When Emma was 15, a music teacher at her high school heard her play at a talent show. You have talent, Miss Williams said afterward. Real talent. Have you ever thought about applying to a music program I can't afford lessons or an instrument? Emma said bluntly. Miss Williams' face fell. Oh, I see. Well, maybe you could find scholarships. But they both knew those were empty words. Scholarships went to students with teachers, with portfolios, with competitions and recordings. Not to foster kids who taught themselves from YouTube. Miss Williams quickly moved on to the next student, and Emma understood the lesson talent didn't matter if you didn't have money to support it. But Emma couldn't give up. Every afternoon at the library, she poured everything into that piano, every frustration, every pain, every moment of feeling worthless. And the music took it all and transformed it into something beautiful. Music was the home she never had, the family that never abandoned her, the voice she was never allowed to use. On her 17th birthday, Emma sat alone in her small room at the Henderson house, staring at the empty future ahead. In 1 year, she'd be 18, officially aged out of the system. No more foster family, no more support. Just her alone, with a high school diploma and no clear path forward. But then, on a cold October day, Emma saw a poster on the library bulletin board. Audition announcement, Ashford Piano Academy. Scholarship open to all talented young musicians under 18 first prize full scholarship, plus living stipend, plus professional classical training. Emma read it 3 times. her heart pounding. This was her chance, her only chance. If she won this scholarship, she could have a future, a career, something more than just survival. But the audition was at Steinway Hall, a place for wealthy students with famous teachers. The registration fee was $150, money Emma didn't have. And even if she had the money, what would she wear? She had no appropriate clothes, no portfolio, nothing to prove she deserved to be there. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, weighing every possibility. She could give up before she started. Except that dreams weren't for girls like her, or she could fight. The next morning, Emma withdrew $80 from her tips at the grocery store, money she'd been saving for the college textbooks, for a used laptop, for any future she might build. She went to the thrift store and bought a black dress, slightly too big but presentable enough, black shoes, old but polished. She didn't look like a conservatory student, but she looked acceptable. With the remaining $40, she made a decision that turned her into a criminal. She took money from the store's tip jar, just enough to cover the registration fee. She'd pay it back. She promised herself, when she won the scholarship, she'd return every penny, but right now, she needed that chance more than she needed a clean conscience. The morning of the audition, Mrs. Henderson blocked her at the door. "Where are you going dressed like that piano audition, ma'am?" Emma said. Mrs. Henderson laughed bitterly. "Piano audition. Are you serious, Emma? You're almost 18. It's time to focus on real skills, real jobs. You're not one of those privileged kids with parents paying for expensive piano teachers. Dreams are for people who can afford them." Emma looked at this woman who had housed her for 5 years but never truly seen her. "Maybe that's true," Emma said quietly. "But today, I'm going to dream anyway." And she walked out the door, into a world she was completely unprepared for, with nothing but self-taught talent and determination born from 17 years of having nowhere to belong. Steinway Hall sat on 57th Avenue like a mirror reflecting everything Emma wasn't. Marble facade, polished brass doors, uniformed attendants opening doors for expensively dressed guests passing through. Emma stood on the sidewalk, her thrift store dress suddenly feeling very thin, very cheap. She could turn back now. No one would know she'd tried. But Mrs. Chen had told her yesterday, courage isn't not having fear. It's doing the right thing even when you're scared. Emma took a deep breath and walked in. The lobby was another world. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, marble floors reflecting light like water. And everywhere, the sounds of pianos. Not just one, but dozens in different rooms, creating a symphony of practice that echoed throughout the building. "Can I help you?" A woman at the reception desk looked Emma up and down, her assessment obvious. "I'm here for the Ashford Scholarship audition," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Name Emma Rodriguez." The woman checked her computer, eyebrows furrowing. "Did you pre-register?" "Yes." "Online?" 3 days ago, and you paid the registration fee." Emma handed over the envelope with $150 cash, money she'd traded her conscience for. The woman counted the money with skeptical expression, then nodded. "3rd floor. Waiting room on the left. Audition start at 2 p.m. Emma climbed the stairs, not daring to use the ornate elevator, and found the waiting room. When she opened the door, every conversation stopped. 15 others were already there. 15 young musicians, all dressed in clothes that looked more expensive than Emma's entire wardrobe. They sat with parents in expensive suits, opening costly instrument cases, reviewing beautifully printed sheet music. Emma found a chair in the corner, trying to make herself small. "Oh my God. Look," a female voice whispered. Not particularly subtle. She brought her stuff in a shopping bag. Emma looked down at the plastic bag containing her sheet music, pages printed from the library, some yellowed, some with handwritten notes in the margins. A boy about 16, hair perfectly gelled, and wearing a designer blazer, looked at Emma with naked curiosity. "What program are you from? I don't recognize you from competitions. I'm not from any program," Emma said quietly. "Oh." His face lit up with understanding. "Self-taught. That's interesting. I've never met anyone self-taught who qualified to audition with Dr. Ashford." The girl sitting next to him, blonde, wearing real pearls, laughed. "Yeah. Interesting is the right word. I'm James, by the way." The boy said, "Studying at Manhattan School of Music pre-college program. This is Catherine. She's at Juilliard pre-college." Catherine nodded slightly, pearls glinting. "Who have you studied with?" "No one," Emma said. "I mainly learn from YouTube and library books." Silence spread through the room. Others turned to stare, some with curiosity, some with immediate contempt. "YouTube," Catherine repeated, her tone unmistakable. "Oh my God." A woman in an Armani suit, obviously someone's mother, leaned toward her daughter and whispered loud enough for Emma to hear, "This must be some diversity initiative." Emma felt her cheeks burning. She wanted to stand, to defend herself, to explain that she just wanted a chance. But she'd learned long ago that foster kids weren't allowed to defend themselves. They had to stay quiet, grateful for scraps of opportunity. So she sat there, making herself small, and waited. Time crawled. Each contestant was called alphabetically. Emma heard fragments of performances through the thick door. Chopin, Liszt, Rachmaninoff executed with technical precision and professional polish. Each performance made her doubt herself more. These students had been playing since they were 4, 5 years old. They'd had the best teachers, the best instruments, unlimited practice time. What did Emma have? 3 hours a day on an out-of-tune library piano and what she could teach herself from the internet? Emma Rodriguez. The voice from the doorway made her jump. A man in a black suit held a clipboard. "That's me." Emma stood, her legs suddenly feeling unsteady. As she stepped toward the door, she heard Catherine whisper to James, "Bet you how long she lasts." "I'm guessing 30 seconds before Dr. Ashford stops her." "Too generous," James replied. "I'm guessing 15. Emma forced herself to keep walking. She followed the man down a long hallway lined with dark wood and warm yellow lighting. At the end, 2 large doors opened into a concert hall. Emma stepped inside and her breath caught. The room was stunning. High ceiling with classical paintings. Deep red seats arranged in a semicircle. And on the stage, under perfectly positioned spotlights, the largest Steinway Model D Emma had ever seen. But Emma barely had time to admire the piano. 3 people sat in the front row, an elderly man with silver sideburns, a middle-aged woman with horn-rimmed glasses, and in the center, a woman Emma recognized me immediately from online photos. Dr. Catherine Ashford, 52 years old but looking not a day over 40. Silver hair, pulled back in a perfect bun. Cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass. Blue eyes that assessed Emma with intensity that evaluated everything and found nothing impressive. Name Dr. Ashford's voice was sharp as her posture. Emma Rodriguez. Age 17, ma'am. Training. Emma swallowed. Self-taught. Ma'am. Dr. Ashford glanced at the two other judges through her glasses. The elderly man shrugged. Taught that the middle-aged woman made notes. Self-taught, Dr. Ashford repeated, her voice flat. No formal teacher, no, ma'am. No program, no credentials, no competitions. No, ma'am. Then why are you here? The question was blunt, but behind it. Emma heard the unspoken, why do you think you belong in this place? Emma took a deep breath. This was the moment she could back down. Apologize for wasting their time. Accept that Mrs. Henderson was right. Dreams weren't for girls like her. Or she could fight. I'm here, Emma said, her voice steadier than she thought possible. Because the poster said, open to all talented young musicians. It didn't say only those with expensive tuition or only those with famous teachers. It said all. And I believe I have talent. Dr. Ashford tilted her head. Something flickering in her eyes that could have been amusement or challenge. You believe you have talent. Based on what? Based on the fact that every day for 3 years, I've practiced on a library piano for 3 hours. Based on teaching myself to read music. Music theory, technique. Based on the fact that when I play, I feel like I finally know how to say what I could never say with words. Emotion, Dr. Ashford said, is not a substitute for technique. No, ma'am, Emma agreed. But technique without emotion is just noise. Tense silence spread through the room. The elderly man raised an eyebrow. The middle-aged woman stopped writing notes. And Dr. Ashford stared at this 17-year-old girl standing on the stage in her thrift store dress and unreasonable boldness. Then, slowly, Dr. Ashford smiled. Not warmly, never warmly, but not quite hostile either. Very well, Emma Rodriguez, you've got your courage. Now let's see if you have talent. Play something, anything. We'll know in 30 seconds whether you're worth continuing to hear. Emma nodded and stepped toward the Steinway Model D. She'd never touched a professional piano in her life. The library piano had stiff keys, out-of-tune strings, pedals that squeaked when pressed. This was different. Even from 6 feet away, Emma could sense the difference. The perfect finish gleaming under lights, the elegant curve of the frame, the keys, clean as new, arranged perfectly like a predator's teeth. Emma sat on the leather-covered bench, adjusted the height. She placed her hands on the keys, and for a full minute, she didn't move. She just felt the cool surface of ivory, the weight of her arms onto the keys, the potential sleeping beneath her fingertips. Then she began to play. Emma had chosen her piece carefully, not one of the easy, safe pieces that beginners typically played, not Für Elise or Clair de Lune. Beautiful pieces, but overplayed. Their power lost through thousands of mediocre interpretations. She chose Beethoven, Piano Sonata No. 14. The Moonlight Sonata, but not the famous. Gentle first movement, she chose the third movement. Presto, agitato. Angry, violent. Demanding technical precision and emotional power that most performers took years to master. I'll play Beethoven Sonata number 14. Third movement, Emma announced, her voice echoing in the silent hall. Dr. Ashford raised an eyebrow. That's an ambitious choice for someone self-taught. Yes, ma'am, Emma said simply. The elderly man leaned forward, expression interested. The middle-aged woman prepared her pen, ready to document mistakes. Emma placed her hands on the keys, and in that moment, everything else disappeared. No more Dr. Ashford, no more judges, no more fear, no more self-doubt, just her and the music. She began. The opening notes exploded from the Steinway like thunder, rapid arpeggiated chords that Beethoven had written to express not moonlight, but darkness and despair. Emma's fingers flew across the keys, her right hand carving out the fierce melody while her left maintained the relentless stream of 16th notes. In the first 3 seconds, Emma felt the difference between the library piano and this Steinway. Each key responded exactly as she intended. No delay, no sticking, no dead notes she'd learned to compensate for. It was like the difference between writing with crayons and writing with the finest ink. Ideas flowed from her mind to her fingertips to sound without anything obstructing. But Emma had no time to marvel at the instrument. The piece demanded every ounce of her concentration. The opening section was all about escalating tension, Beethoven building from unease to panic to pure rage. Emma played it as she'd lived it. Each arpeggio was a foster family rejecting her. Each violent chord was a door slamming in her face. Each chromatic passage was nights lying awake, wondering why she wasn't good enough to be loved. She wasn't playing notes. She was playing her life. Dr. Ashford sat forward, her body rigid. The elderly man dropped his pen. The middle-aged woman forgot to take notes. Her mouth slightly open. The third movement of the Moonlight Sonata is one of the most punishing pieces in piano literature. It demands stamina, nearly 4 minutes of intense, unrelenting playing with no place to rest, no moment where the performer can relax. Every second requires maximum focus, precision, and physical strength. There were technical flaws in Emma's performance. The judges could hear them. Her pedaling was sometimes too heavy, allowing harmonies to blur when they should be clear. Her fourth finger, the weakest finger, wasn't quite equal to the others in strength. And there were moments, very brief, but audible, when her precision loosened, when panic about the piece's difficulty threatened to overwhelm her. But those flaws didn't matter, because what Emma lacked in technical polish, she compensated for 100-fold in emotional depth. When she reached the middle section, where Beethoven provides a fleeting moment of lyrical beauty before plunging back into chaos, Emma played it with such softness that Dr. Ashford felt her heart constrict. It wasn't just soft notes. It was hope, fragile and brief, a candle's flickering light in strong wind before being extinguished. Then the storm returned. Emma's hands attacked the keyboard with renewed fury. These were the darkest moments of the piece, where Beethoven seemed to ask, "Is there no end to suffering?" And Emma, who had spent 17 years asking exactly that question, knew the answer. She played it with every note. "No, there's no end. But you keep going anyway." The final section approached, the ultimate climbing arpeggios, ascending and ascending until they reached the peak of tension, and then the final chords. Not resolution, not catharsis, just acceptance. The last notes didn't say everything is okay. They said this is how things are, and I'm still here. Emma played the final chord and held it, letting it ring through the hall, letting the Steinway's natural resonance carry the sound to the furthest corner of the space before it faded into silence. Only then did she lift her hands from the keys. Complete silence. Emma didn't dare look at the judges. She stared at her hands, trembling slightly from the physical strain of the piece, and waited for judgment. 3 seconds passed. 5. 10. Then Dr. Ashford stood. Emma's heart sank. She was going to dismiss her, would tell her the technique wasn't good enough, that she'd wasted everyone's time, that she should again. Emma's head snapped up. Ma'am, play it again. Dr. Ashford's voice was unreadable. I need to hear it one more time. I'm not sure I can. My hands again. Right now. Emma looked into the woman's eyes and saw something she didn't expect. Not anger, not contempt, but something she couldn't identify. She turned back to the piano and began again. This time was different. Now that she knew what the Steinway could do, now that she'd played the piece once in this space, she was better. The arpeggios were cleaner. The dynamics more nuanced. She still wasn't perfect, never perfect, but she was better. And when she played the final chord the second time, when the sound faded into silence, Emma heard a sound she'd never heard in her life directed at her. Applause. It wasn't from the judges. They never applauded during auditions. It came from the door. Emma turned and saw 15 faces pressed against the small window in the door. The other contestants, who had left the waiting room to listen. James with his blazer. Catherine with her pearls. All of them. Faces ranging from shock to jealousy to, in some grudging respect. Dr. Ashford didn't look at the door. She stared at Emma with that intensity again. Where did you learn that her voice sounded almost accusatory? YouTube, ma'am, Emma said quietly. I watched videos of Horowitz, Ashkenazy, Pogorelich. I learned from them. You can't learn Beethoven from YouTube? No, ma'am. But I could learn technique. I could learn how they moved, how they phrased the notes. The rest? Emma paused, searching for words. The rest I just felt. The middle-aged woman spoke for the first time. Professor Ashford, the emotional depth is remarkable, but the technical issues are significant. Pedaling, fourth finger. Certain passages where I know about the technical issues. Margaret, Dr. Ashford interrupted, never taking her eyes off Emma. I can fix technique. I've done it for 30 years. But this, she gestured toward Emma, this can't be taught. You can't teach a student to feel music this way. They either have it or they don't. The elderly man nodded slowly. I agree. I haven't heard something like this in 5 years. 10 raw talent. Yes, flawed, certainly. But something real. Dr. Ashford finally turned away from Emma toward the 2 other judges. They had a whispered conversation that Emma couldn't hear. She sat there at the piano bench, heart pounding, not daring to hope. Finally, Dr. Ashford turned back to her. Emma Rodriguez, you have undeniable talent. You also have massive technical gaps that will require years of proper training to overcome. The panel has deliberated, and we've reached a decision. Emma's hands clenched in her lap. You are not receiving the scholarship. The world seemed to tilt. Emma felt her body flush hot, then cold. Of course. She'd been a fool to think, however. Dr. Ashford continued. I'm prepared to offer you something else. Not the scholarship. You're not ready for the academy, but I will teach you privately. Personally, 1 year. Then you audition again?" Emma stared, unable to believe what she was hearing. I can't afford private lessons with you, ma'am. I saw your rates online. I'm not asking for money." Dr. Ashford's voice was sharp. "I'm asking for commitment. I will push you harder than anyone you've ever met. I will tear apart everything you think you know and rebuild it properly." Many students quit. Can you handle that? Emma thought about the past 17 years, 8 foster families, countless times being told she wasn't good enough. Every door closing, every rejection. "I've survived 8 foster families, ma'am," Emma said, her voice steady. "I can survive anything." Something flickered in Dr. Ashford's eyes, an emotion she quickly concealed. "Fine. First lesson is Monday, 4 p.m. My studio. Don't be late." And Emma. She paused as Emma stood to leave. "This isn't charity. This is investment. I'm betting that in 1 year, I can turn you into something special. Don't make me regret it. I won't." "Ma'am." Emma walked off the stage with trembling legs. When she opened the door to the hallway, the 15 other contestants were still there, no longer hiding that they'd been listening. Catherine looked at Emma with genuine surprise. James nodded slowly, expression thoughtful. "That," a voice from behind the group said, "was terrifying." Emma said nothing. She just walked past them, down the stairs, out of Steinway Hall into the afternoon light. Only when she turned the corner, safe from curious eyes, did Emma lean against a building and let the tears come. Not tears of sorrow, but tears of relief, exhaustion, and something she didn't dare name, hope. Monday came too quickly. Emma stood outside an elegant brownstone on the Upper West Side, checking the address on her phone for the 3rd time. Could this be the right place? The building looked like something from an architecture magazine. Bay windows, detailed stonework, a gleaming wooden door with brass fixtures. She rang the bell. A buzz. Then Dr. Ashford's voice from the intercom 3rd floor. Elevator or stairs? Emma climbed the stairs, still uncomfortable using elevators in buildings like this. On the 3rd floor, a door stood open. Dr. Ashford was there, wearing khakis and a cashmere sweater, still elegant, but less formal than at the audition. "You're on time." "Good. Never make me wait." The apartment was breathtaking. High ceilings, gleaming hardwood floors, artwork on the walls that Emma suspected was original. And in the center of the main space, 3 grand pianos, a Steinway Model D, like at Steinway Hall, a Bosendorfer Imperial with beautiful golden wood casing, and a Fazioli that seemed to glow with light under natural illumination from windows. 3 pianos, Emma whispered. "Each has a different voice," Dr. Ashford explained. "The Steinway for Beethoven, Brahms, the Germans, the Bosendorfer for Mozart, Schubert, the Austrians, the Fazioli for the French, the Russians, anything requiring nuance and color. A true artist understands that the instrument matters." Emma couldn't imagine affording 1 grand piano, let alone 3. "But today," Dr. Ashford continued, walking toward the Steinway, "we start with basics. Sit." Emma sat at the piano bench, feeling strange and familiar at the same time. "Place your hands on the keys." Playing position. Emma did so. Wrong. Dr. Ashford's voice was sharp as a razor. "Your wrists are too low. Your fingers too flat. Your knees aren't at the right height. You've developed terrible habits." Emma, We'll have to unlearn all of them before you can learn properly. The next 2 hours were the most brutal Emma had ever experienced. Dr. Ashford wouldn't let her play a single melody instead. They worked on posture, individual fingers, strength exercises over and over and over, until Emma's hands ached and she felt like she might cry from frustration. I know how to play. Emma finally broke. I've been playing for 3 years. You know how to play wrong? Dr. Ashford interrupted. 3 years you've reinforced bad patterns that will ruin you if we don't fix them now. So we'll do this my way. Or not at all. Your choice. Emma swallowed her indignation. Your way. Good. Again. Scales. 1 octave up, 1 octave down. C major. By the time the lesson ended, Emma's hands were shaking and she felt more exhausted than after playing Beethoven the first time. Homework, Dr. Ashford said as Emma stood to leave. 1 hour daily on individual finger exercises. Hannon, Cherney. They're boring, but they'll build the strength and independence you lack. Then 2 hours on scales in all major and minor keys. I want them as muscle memory by Wednesday. 3 hours a day, Emma calculated. I only have library time from 3:30 to 5:45. Find more time. If you're serious about this, you make it work. Emma nodded, though she had no idea how. But that night when she got home, she figured it out. She'd wake at 4:30 a.m. instead of 5:30, use that hour to practice silently on the paper keyboard she'd made from cardboard, at lunch at school. Instead of eating with other students, she'd go to the library and work through finger exercises in her head, moving her fingers on the table. After school, 3 hours at the library piano. Evening, after work and homework, another hour on the paper keyboard. Mrs. Henderson noticed the change immediately. Why are you getting up so early? And where do you go every evening piano practice? Ma'am, Emma said. Still with that nonsense, Mrs. Henderson shook her head. You know what happens in 6 months, Emma. You age out. No more subsidies, no more support. If you don't have a plan for housing and work, you'll be on the streets. Maybe you should worry less about piano and more about surviving. Those words weighed heavily on Emma throughout the week. Mrs. Henderson was right. In 6 months, she'd be 18. Dr. Ashford's scholarship wouldn't come before then, even if she auditioned again and won. The academy didn't start until September. That left summer, 3. 4 months when she'd have nowhere to live. But she couldn't think about that now. She couldn't let fear paralyze her. So she pushed it down. Focused on scales, exercises, lessons. Wednesday came. Dr. Ashford tested her work, saying nothing for 10 minutes while she played scales. Better, she finally said. 4th finger still weak, but better. Now we can begin real work. Real work Emma had spent the entire week working. Dr. Ashford handed her a thick book of sheet music. Bach, the Well-Tempered Clavier. Book 1. We'll work through all 24 preludes and fugues, 1 per month, 2 years, by the time you finish. You'll understand counterpoint, voice leading, and structural architecture in ways no amount of Chopin could teach you. Emma looked at the music with dread. 2 years. 24 sets of preludes and fugues. But you said 1 year of lessons. I said 1 year until you audition again. If you win the scholarship, and that's a big if, then you continue studying with me while attending the academy. Music isn't something you learn and then finish. Emma, It's a lifelong commitment. 6 weeks into lessons, Emma's life began falling apart. Her boss at the grocery store called her into the office. "Emma, I need to talk about your performance." Her heart sank. "Is something wrong?" "Sir, you've been late 3 times this week. Last week, you fell asleep at the register. Customers complained. I can't keep you if you can't do the job." "I'm sorry," Emma said quickly. "I'm going through a difficult time, but I have to cut your hours to 2 shifts per week. If you can't handle that reliably, I'll have to let you go." 2 shifts. That was $120 per week instead of $240. Emma calculated quickly. She needed that money for food, for subway fare, for everything. How would she survive on half her income, I understand. "Sir," she said, her voice hollow, "thank you for the opportunity. At school, things weren't better. Miss Williams, the music teacher, pulled her aside after class. Emma, I heard you're studying with Dr. Ashford." "That's wonderful, really. But your grades are dropping in all your other classes. You're at risk of failing calculus and chemistry. If you don't pull them up, you might not graduate." Emma felt the world spin. "But I need my diploma I know. So you need to find balance. Piano can't be everything." "Emma?" But it was everything. It was the only thing holding her together. The only thing that made sense in a life that felt like it was disintegrating. That night, Emma sat at the small kitchen table in her room, staring at textbooks she couldn't focus on reading. Her hands ached. Her head hurt. And for the first time since beginning this journey, she wondered if Mrs. Henderson was right. Maybe dreams were luxuries that girls like her couldn't afford. The next lesson. Monday. Emma showed up exhausted. She hadn't slept more than 4 hours per night all week. She'd been eating irregularly, no time, no money, no energy to try. "You look terrible," Dr. Ashford said when Emma walked into the studio. "I'm fine. You're not fine. Sit, play your warm-up." Emma sat and began scales, but her hands were shaking and she kept missing notes. "Stop," Dr. Ashford said after 1 minute. "What's happening?" "Nothing. I'm just tired. This isn't tired. This is something else." "Tell me." Emma felt something in her crack. "I lost most of my work hours. My grades are dropping. Mrs. Henderson keeps reminding me that in 5 months I won't have anywhere to live. And her voice broke. "I'm trying to do everything and I'm failing at all of it. Then quit." Emma's head snapped up. "What quit?" Dr. Ashford's voice was flat, emotionless. "If this is too much, if you can't handle it, no one's forcing you to continue. You can walk away right now, find a full-time job, focus on graduating, and live a normal, practical life. There's no shame in that. I don't want to quit." "Then what do you want?" Emma looked at this woman who had pushed her harder than anyone, who had never once told her good job, without it coming with a list of 10 things she'd done wrong. "I want to belong somewhere," Emma whispered. "I want to have a place that no one can take from me. Music is the only thing that's ever made me feel that way. Like I have a home." Dr. Ashford's expression softened. Just a fraction, just for a second. But Emma saw it. "I'm going to tell you something I've never told a student before." Dr. Ashford sat, and the way she moved was different, less like a teacher, more like a human. "When I was 12, my mother died. My father, he didn't handle it well. Started drinking. Became violent one night. I ended up in the hospital with a broken arm. Child Protective Services took me away. Emma stared, shock rippling through her. I was in the system for 2 years. 2 families. 2 years of hell. And the only thing that kept me sane was piano. There was a teacher at my school, Mrs. Morrison, who let me practice during lunch. She never formally taught me. She couldn't afford to, but she gave me space and time. I didn't know, Emma said softly. No one knows. I don't talk about it. When I was 14, my father went through rehab, regained custody. We rebuilt our relationship. He had money inherited from his family, and he used it to pay for the best teachers, the best schools. I climbed to success from privilege. Yes, but I started in the same place you're standing. Emma couldn't speak, past the lump in her throat. So when I tell you this is too hard, Dr. Ashford continued, I'm not speaking from privilege. I'm speaking from experience. I know what the cost is, and I need to know you're willing to pay it. I am, Emma said, her voice stronger now. I've survived everything else. I'll survive this. Dr. Ashford nodded slowly. Then we fix this situation. Work. How much do you need per week to survive? About 200. Maybe 150 if I'm really careful. Good. I need someone to clean my studio once per week. 3 hours. $50 per hour. That's 150. Will you do it? You don't need to. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering employment. This studio is dusty and I hate cleaning. Will you help me or not? Emma nodded. Throat too tight to speak. Good. Now, grades. You need tutoring. I know a Columbia student. He'll work with you 2 hours per week on calculus and chemistry. Free. He owes me a favor. I can't accept all this. You can and you will. Dr. Ashford's voice returned to its usual firmness. Because I've invested 4 months in you. And I don't let my investments fail because of practical problems that can be solved. Understand? Yes. Ma'am, good. Now about housing, that's more complicated. But we have 5 months to figure it out. One problem at a time. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt like she could breathe. They spent the rest of the lesson working through a Bach fugue, and though Emma's hands were still tired, her mind still foggy, she played better than she had in days. Because now, at least, she wasn't alone. Month 4 of training marked a turning point. Emma had worked through 8 Bach preludes and fugues, 4 Beethoven sonatas, and a series of Chopin etudes that Dr. Ashford insisted would build her technique. Her hands now had strength she'd never had before. Her scales were fast, even, nearly perfect. But more importantly, she'd begun to understand what Dr. Ashford was trying to teach her, that technique and emotion weren't enemies. They were partners. The better her technique, the more freely she could express deeper emotions. One June afternoon, Dr. Ashford handed her new sheet music, Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major, Opus 9, number 2. Do you know it? I've heard it, never played it. It's one of the most beautiful works ever written for piano. Also one of the hardest to do well, because it requires something many players don't have, not technical chops, but emotional maturity. You must understand sadness to play this piece correctly. Not theatrical sadness, but the deep, quiet kind. Emma looked at the music. It didn't look technically terrifying, no rapid octave runs, no dangerous jumps, but something about the way the notes were arranged on the page, The way the melody wound and twisted made her heart constrict. "Do you hear it in your heart yet?" Dr. Ashford asked. Emma nodded. She did. Every night waking in unfamiliar foster homes, every morning realizing she still didn't belong. It was this feeling, quiet sorrow, lingering melancholy that never broke into pain. "Play it," Dr. Ashford said. "Don't worry about perfection, just feel it." Emma placed her hands on the keys and began. The opening melody, simple, almost humble. The first few notes were like a question whispered into darkness. "Is anyone there?" Her left hand provided harmonic foundation, gently rocking chords like a mother rocking a child, like gentle waves on a shore at midnight. And above that, her right hand sang the melody, each note embellished with trills and turns that Chopin had written not for showmanship, but to convey the fragility of emotion. Emma played. And she didn't think about technique. She thought about her birth mother, the woman she barely remembered, whose face was blurry in memory. She thought about all the foster mothers who never really mothered. She thought about Mrs. Sarah Martin with the basement piano, who gave her the gift of music without even knowing she'd done so. The melody reached its climax, not a powerful, dramatic climax, but a soft swell that felt like a heart, breaking and healing at the same time. Emma's fingers danced through the embellishments, each trill a tremor of emotion, each mordant a whisper of pain. When she played the final notes, the melody descending back into silence, the last chord fading like a sigh, Emma felt tears on her cheeks. She lifted her hands from the keys and sat still, not daring to look at Dr. Ashford. The silence stretched long. Then she heard a sound she'd never heard from her teacher before, a soft sniff, a catch of breath. Emma looked up. Dr. Ashford was crying. The woman quickly wiped her eyes, composure cracking for just a second before sliding back into place. But Emma had seen it. "That," Dr. Ashford said, her voice slightly hoarse, "is how you play Chopin." Emma didn't know what to say. "You're ready," Dr. Ashford continued. "Not for the audition yet, that's 8 months away, but for something else." She stood and walked to her desk, pulling out a flyer. "The National Young Musicians Competition next month. New York City. Winner receives full scholarship to any conservatory in the country, plus $50,000 stipend, plus professional performance management." Emma's heart pounded. "But I've never competed before." "I don't have experience. No one has experience until they do. This is a major competition. Emma, 10 finalists from across the country. Each one has been conservatory trained, wealthy, connected. You'll be the underdog. I've always been the underdog." A small smile tugged at the corner of Dr. Ashford's mouth. "Yes, you have, and that might be your greatest advantage." She handed Emma the flyer. "Preliminary round is video submission. You send recordings of 3 pieces, 1 Baroque, 1 classical, 1 romantic, if you make it past prelims. Finals are live. At Carnegie Hall." Carnegie Hall. The words alone felt impossible. "I need to tell you something," Dr. Ashford said, her voice unusually serious. "Well, when I saw you walk into that audition 6 months ago, I saw myself. The foster kid who didn't belong. The kid everyone would laugh at. And part of me wanted to protect you from the failure I knew was coming." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But another part of me thought, what if someone had given me a real chance. Not charity, not pity, but a genuine opportunity to prove myself. Maybe my life would have been different. Your life is successful. Ma'am, I'm successful, but I'm also bitter. I built walls to protect myself, and those walls kept people out, kept joy out. I became a gatekeeper because once I was the one outside the gates, and it felt like power to finally be the one deciding who belongs. Emma listened, barely breathing. You've taught me something. Emma, you've reminded me that talent doesn't have a zip code. Genius doesn't come with a bank account. And my job isn't to protect classical music from people like you. It's to protect people like you from a system designed to keep them out. Dr. Ashford stood straight, back to professional mode. So here's what happens. We have 1 month to prepare your recording. You'll play Bach Prelude and Fugue in C-sharp major, one you've mastered. Beethoven Sonata No. 14, third movement, the Moonlight Sonata that got you here, and the Chopin Nocturne you just played. 3 pieces showing your range, your maturity, and your unique voice. 1 month, Emma whispered. That's not much time. It's enough. You've put in the work. Now we polish until it shines. 3 weeks into preparation, the first bomb dropped. Emma turned 18 on a quiet Tuesday. No party, no celebration. Just an envelope from the state with paperwork confirming that she'd officially aged out of the foster system. Mrs. Henderson called her down that evening. You have 2 weeks to move out. Emma, I found a new placement, an 8-year-old boy. Your room needs to be available by June 30th. 2 weeks, 14 days to find a place to live with $150 per week from cleaning Dr. Ashford's studio and no credit history, no co-signers, nothing that landlords required. Emma spent every spare minute searching. Rooms for rent in the Bronx required security deposits she didn't have. Shelters had waiting lists months long. A social worker she spoke to suggested she consider compromising on piano to focus on finding stable employment. The night before her recording session, Emma sat at the library piano, unable to play. Her hands rested on the keys, but no music came. Only fear. At too many points in her life, she'd had nothing, but she'd always had a roof, however temporary. Now she faced the possibility of being truly homeless, and she didn't know how to practice piano from a shelter. Are you finished for the night, Mrs.? Chen's voice came from the doorway. Emma looked up, realizing she'd been sitting frozen for 20 minutes. I'm sorry, I'll leave. Mrs. Chen walked closer, studying Emma's face. What's wrong? Emma tried to say nothing, but instead, everything poured out, aging out, having nowhere to go. The recording session tomorrow that she wasn't prepared for because she couldn't stop thinking about sleeping on streets. Mrs. Chen listened without interrupting. When Emma finished, the elderly woman nodded slowly. I'll call Dr. Ashford, she said simply. No. Please, you need help. Pride doesn't keep you warm. An hour later, Emma's phone rang. Dr. Ashford. Pack your things. The voice had no preamble. You're moving into my guest house. Tonight, I can't accept it's not charity, it's investment. You have a recording tomorrow and a final competition in 2 months. You cannot perform while worrying about survival. So here's the arrangement. You live in the guest house rent-free until you either win the competition or find a better option. You continue cleaning the studio and help with administrative work, filing, scheduling. Whatever I need, it's a job. Emma, not a handout. Ma'am. And when you're successful, when, not if you pay it forward, you help the next kid standing where you're standing now. Deal? Emma couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. I'll take that silence as yes, Dr. Ashford said. My address is 285 West 76th Street. Guest house is separate entrance. Back of the property. Key will be under the mat. Move in tonight. Get sleep. Recording session is 10 a.m. sharp. The line went dead. Emma sat staring at her phone, tears streaming down her face. For the first time since she was 5 years old, someone had chosen her. Not because of legal obligation, not because of a stipend, because they saw something in her worth believing in. That was what having a home felt like. The recording went flawlessly. Emma played all 3 pieces with focus she'd never managed before. Bach was precise and architectural. Beethoven was powerful and emotional. Chopin was heartbreaking. 2 weeks later, the email came. Congratulations. You have been selected as one of 10 finalists for the National Young Musicians Competition. Final round will be held August 15th at Carnegie Hall. Emma stared at the screen, reading it 5 times to make sure it was real. She was going to Carnegie Hall. The next month was a whirlwind. Media picked up the story. Foster kid piano prodigy makes finals of prestigious competition. Local news interviewed her. Social media buzzed. Suddenly everyone had opinions about her. Positive comments poured in. This is so inspiring, rooting for you. Proof that talent can come from anywhere, but negative ones cut deep. Diversity hire. Feel-good story won't last. She's getting a charity pass because of her sob story. Christina reached out unexpectedly. They met for coffee, awkward at first, but Christina's guard was down. I saw you on the news. Christina said, your recording was... It was really good. Emma. Thanks. I owe you an apology. I was cruel when we met. I was threatened. Christina stirred her coffee. I had everything, best teachers, best instruments, all the time in the world, and still, listening to you play, I could hear something I never had. You made music mean something. You make it mean something too, Emma said. Your technical perfection is astonishing, but it's empty. I realize that now. I learned to play correctly. You learned to play truthfully. Christina looked up. That's why you'll win. Emma didn't know about winning. She only knew that she'd worked harder than ever in her life. August 15th arrived. Carnegie Hall was even more overwhelming than Emma had imagined. The gilded tiers, red velvet seats, ornate ceiling, it was a temple to music, and she was about to play on its sacred stage, backstage. Emma saw the 9 other finalists. All looked expensive and polished. All had parents fussing over them, adjusting ties, offering encouragement. Emma had Dr. Ashford, who stood with hands in pockets, face unreadable. Are you nervous? She asked. Terrified. Good. Fear means you care. Here's what I need you to understand. Dr. Ashford stepped closer. Those 9 pianists out there, they're exceptional. They've had every advantage. But you have something they don't. You know what it is to fight for something, to need it so badly you can taste it. Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. When you walk onto that stage, don't play for the judges, don't play for the audience. Play for every foster kid told they weren't good enough. Play for every person refused a chance because they didn't come from the right place. Play for the 5-year-old girl who was taken from everything she knew and told to stay silent and small. Emma felt something in her chest ignite. Play for you, Emma. Play for the girl who found a piano in a basement and knew she'd finally found home. Emma Rodriguez. You're up. Emma walked onto the Carnegie Hall stage, and for a moment she was paralyzed by sheer scale. 2,800 seats, everyone filled. Stage lights so bright she couldn't see faces. And center stage, illuminated perfectly. A Steinway Model D. She sat, adjusted the height, placed her hands on the keys, and began. She'd chosen Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor, The Bells of Moscow, the same piece from the sample script. But Emma's interpretation was entirely her own. The opening chords rang out, deep, ominous like church bells tolling in the distance. Emma's left hand established a dark, powerful foundation in the low registers. Her right hand carved out the melody with strength and sorrow. The piece built slowly. Rachmaninoff had written it after hearing the bells of Moscow's churches, and the music evoked not just sound but feeling, the weight of history, echoes of sadness, beauty and darkness. Emma poured everything into it. Each chord was a door slamming. Each crescendo was a refusal to give up. Each soft passage was a moment of tenderness in a harsh world. The audience was transfixed. Judges leaned forward. Even the other competitors in the wings stopped breathing. The middle section arrived. Thunderous, overwhelming, like every bell in Moscow ringing at once. Emma's hands flew across the entire range of the keyboard, her body swaying with effort, her face intense with concentration. Then the resolution. The piece returned to the opening theme. Transformed now, quieter, sadder, resigned. The bells faded to echoes. The final chords carried the weight of acceptance and grief, and a beauty too profound for words. Emma played the last note and held it, letting it fade naturally into silence. 3 seconds of absolute stillness, then eruption. The entire hall stood, applause like thunder, people crying, a standing ovation before the judges had even announced winners. Emma looked out at the sea of faces, some crying, some smiling, all clapping, and felt something she'd never felt before: pride. Not pride in winning, pride in having had the courage to try. The judges deliberated for 30 minutes. Emma sat backstage, hands trembling, trying not to hope too hard. Finally, the announcement: 3rd place. Christina Beaumont. Christina walked out to enthusiastic applause. She deserved it. Her performance had been technically flawless. 2nd place. James Zhang. Then a pause. The head judge stepped to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's competition has been exceptional. But one performance stood out, not just for technical skill, though that was considerable. It stood out because it reminded us why music matters, why we practice countless hours, why we sacrifice and struggle. Emma's heart pounded so hard, she thought everyone could hear it. 1st place, gold medal, and full scholarship to Juilliard School. Emma Rodriguez. The world exploded. The audience erupted. Media cameras flashed. Emma walked onto the stage in a daze, accepting the trophy, shaking hands, hearing congratulations that felt like they were happening to someone else. She looked into the audience and found Dr. Ashford. Her teacher wasn't clapping dramatically. She was just standing, tears streaming down her face, nodding slowly. The message in her eyes was clear. You did it. You proved you belonged. Emma looked out at the audience, thousands of people, all celebrating her, and realized something profound. She'd been searching for a place to belong her entire life. But belonging wasn't about place. It was about becoming so undeniably yourself that the world had to make room. She belonged because she'd made it impossible not to see her. The press room afterward was chaos. Microphones pushed toward her. Cameras flashed endlessly. Reporters shouted questions. Emma, how do you feel overwhelmed? She admitted, her voice still slightly shaking. I still can't believe this is real. You're the first foster youth to ever win this competition. What does that mean to you? Emma thought carefully. It means that the system that once told me I wasn't worth keeping was wrong. It means every kid in foster care right now who thinks they're invisible. You aren't. You have value. You deserve chances. A reporter from the New York Times. You were self-taught until 6 months ago. How did you close the gap with competitors who had a decade of training? I didn't close the gap, Emma said honestly. Technically, I'm still behind many of them. Christina Beaumont's technique is superior to mine in almost every way. But I had an advantage they didn't. I needed music to survive. It wasn't a hobby or a career path. It was a lifeline. That desperation, that hunger, it can't be taught. What are your plans for the future? Juilliard in the fall. And Emma paused, an idea forming as she spoke. I want to start a program. Something to give foster kids access to music lessons, instruments, practice spaces. Not charity, real training. Because talent doesn't care about zip codes. Genius doesn't need a bank account. But it does need opportunity. Dr. Ashford stood in the back of the room, and Emma caught her eye. Her teacher nodded just once, but it said everything. After the press conference, the flood of offers began. Concert halls wanted to book her. Recording companies offered contracts. Agents wanted to represent her. NPR requested an interview. Good Morning America. The Today Show. You're the story of the year, Dr. Ashford said, scrolling through emails. Foster kid makes good. American Dream realized. The media loves it. You don't sound thrilled. I'm not. Dr. Ashford looked up. Stories have shelf lives. Emma, right now, you're the inspiring underdog. But in 6 months, the public will move on to the next story. If you want a lasting career, you need to be more than a feel-good headline. So what do? You work. You study at Juilliard like your life depends on it. You build repertoire. You enter more competitions, win some, lose others. You develop as an artist. Not as a celebrity. Fame is easy. Mastery is hard. Emma understood. She hadn't come here to be famous. She'd come to belong to music. That night, back at Dr. Ashford's guest house, Emma sat at the window looking out over Manhattan. City lights sparkled like stars. Somewhere out there was Carnegie Hall, where she'd just proved herself. Somewhere was the Bronx Library with the beat-up piano where it all started. Somewhere was Steinway Hall where Dr. Ashford had taken a chance. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unexpected number saw the news. I'm proud of you, Mrs. Sarah Martin. Emma stared at the message. Mrs. Martin, the foster mother from the year she discovered piano. The woman who probably never knew that her basement piano had saved a little girl's life. Emma typed back, Thank you for leaving that piano in the basement. You changed everything for me. The response came quickly. I always wondered if you still played. I'm glad you found your way. More messages came in. Miss Williams from high school, Mrs. Chen from the library, even a couple of foster siblings from years past. But the message that made Emma cry came from an unexpected source. Christina, you deserved that win, and you made me want to be a better artist. Thank you for reminding me why I fell in love with music. Neat to see Emma had spent her entire life fighting to be seen. Now she was visible, truly, undeniably visible, and it was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. February. Emma's first year at Juilliard was half over. She sat in a practice room, preparing for a recital, when a knock came at the door. Dr. Ashford, do you have a moment? They walked to a cafe nearby, ordered coffee, sat in a corner booth. I have a proposal, Dr. Ashford said. Remember you told the press you wanted to start a program for foster kids? Emma nodded. I've spent the last 6 months making it happen. I've secured funding from donors, rented space, recruited teachers. I need one more thing, the face of the program. Someone who understands both music and the foster system. Someone who can inspire these kids to believe they deserve a shot. You want me to lead it, I want us to lead it together. I'll provide infrastructure and connections. You provide heart. We'll call it... She pulled out a mock-up of a logo. Keys to Home, music education for foster youth. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Keys to Home. Every kid deserves a home. Sometimes home isn't a place. It's a passion, a purpose, something that makes you feel like you belong in the world. For you, it was piano. We'll give that to others. The program launched in March with 15 students ages 8 to 17, all in foster care, all showing musical aptitude but lacking resources. Emma taught a group class on Saturdays, watching these kids discover instruments, seeing their faces light up when they played their first scales. It was like watching her own journey reflected back. One girl, 10-year-old Maya, reminded Emma of herself, quiet, guarded, fingers aching to touch the piano but scared to take up space. You can play louder. Emma encouraged during a lesson, you won't bother anyone. This is your time. Maya's fingers pressed harder, the sound growing stronger. I'm used to being quiet. My foster mom says I should stay out of the way. Emma knelt down to Maya's level. I know that feeling. But in here, you don't have to stay out of the way. In here, you take up all the space you need. Music is where you get to be loud. By May, the program had grown to 40 students. Local news covered it. More donors came forward. Concert halls offered practice space. Professional musicians volunteered teaching time. Emma performed a benefit concert to raise funds. Carnegie Hall sold out. $200,000 raised in one night. Every penny went to the program. Dr. Ashford sat in the audience, and Emma dedicated the performance to her. 1 year ago, Emma said from the stage, I walked into an audition not knowing if I'd be laughed out of the room. One person saw past my circumstances to the potential underneath. Dr. Catherine Ashford didn't save me, she challenged me, and that made all the difference. She played a Beethoven sonata, The Moonlight, third movement, the piece that got her here, but now she played it with deeper understanding. Not just as a personal story, but as a universal one. The story of anyone who ever felt like they didn't belong, anyone who ever fought against odds, anyone who ever refused to stay silent. After the concert, Maya and other students from the program came backstage. "You were so good," Maya said, eyes wide. "Do you think I could ever play like that?" Emma knelt down. "You know what I think? I think you're already playing exactly as you should. Right now, at your age, with your experience, you get better every day. Just keep showing up. Keep trying. That's all I did. Did you ever want to quit many times? But I had something that kept me going. I knew music was my home. It was the place where I belonged. Have you found that yet, that feeling that when you play, nothing else matters?" Maya nodded slowly. "Sometimes. When I practice late at night and my foster parents are sleeping and it's just me and the piano, I feel safe. That's it," Emma said softly. "That's music becoming your home. Protect that feeling. Nurture it. Because no one can take that away from you." Watching Maya walk away, her fingers already moving as she mentally practiced scales, Emma understood something profound. She wasn't just teaching piano, she was teaching resilience, hope, the right to take up space in the world, 1 year after winning the competition. Emma returned to the Bronx Public Library. Mrs. Chen still worked there, still guarding the piano room in the afternoons. "You came back," Mrs. Chen said, smiling. "I needed to see this place again, where it all started." They walked to the piano room together. The same beat-up upright, same scratched bench, same slightly out-of-tune keys. Emma sat and played one scale. The sound was exactly as she remembered, imperfect but honest. "I thought the piano sounded like heaven," Emma said. "Now that I've played Steinways and Fazioli's, I hear every flaw. But you know what? I still love that sound. Because it's the sound of beginning. You gave that piano life," Mrs. Chen said. "It sat silent for years. Then you came and made it sing." Emma looked around the room, scratched walls, fluorescent lights, notices about library hours. Nothing special. Nothing expensive. Just a public space with a beaten piano. "I used to think I needed a perfect instrument, perfect teacher, perfect circumstances," Emma said. "But the truth is, I had everything I needed right here. Space to practice, time to dream, and a piano, no matter how imperfect, to let me speak when I had no voice." Mrs. Chen nodded. "You made the choice to see opportunity instead of obstacle. That's a gift." "Emma, not everyone has that, maybe. Or maybe I just didn't have the luxury of giving up. When you have nothing to lose. That makes you dangerous." Emma played a few more notes. The beginning of the Moonlight Sonata, the piece that changed everything. "I'm going back to Carnegie Hall next month," she said. "Full recital? Solo performance? Tickets sold out in 2 hours? I'll be there," Mrs. Chen said. "Front row, if I can manage it. I already reserved a seat for you. And one for Dr. Ashford, one for Maya from the program, one for—" Emma paused. "One for the memory of every kid still in the system. Every person told they don't belong." She closed the piano lid gently. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen, for letting me practice here, for not kicking me out when you had every right, for seeing me when most people didn't." Mrs. Chen's eyes were wet. "I always saw you, child. From the first day, I was just waiting for you to see yourself." Emma stood alone on the stage of Carnegie Hall during sound check for her recital. The hall was empty, just 2,800 vacant seats and one piano. She sat at the Steinway and began to play softly, fingers drifting through the melody of the Chopin Nocturne. The music echoed in the empty space, beautiful and melancholy. 1 year ago, she had walked onto this stage as a contestant. Tonight, she would walk on as an artist. That journey wasn't just about learning piano. It was about learning that she deserved to exist in spaces people said weren't meant for her. The Keys to Home program now served over 40 students every Saturday. Foster kids aged 8 to 17 discovered instruments, learned scales, found their voices through music, watching them practice, hearing their laughter, seeing their faces light up when they played their first pieces. It was like watching her own journey reflected back. There are over 400,000 children in the foster care system right now. Each one carries talents, dreams, potential waiting to be unlocked. But talent without opportunity is like a seed without soil. It can't grow no matter how strong it is. Emma thought about Maya, the 10-year-old girl who reminded her so much of herself. Patient and guarded, with fingers aching to touch the piano but scared to take up space. Just last week, Maya had played her first complete piece, a simple Beethoven minuet, and the pride in her eyes had made Emma cry. Emma had been lucky. One teacher took a chance. One space gave her room to practice. One instrument, beaten and imperfect, let her find her voice. Not every foster kid gets that lucky. But what if luck wasn't necessary? What if every talented kid, regardless of background, zip code, bank account, had access to instruments, teachers, spaces to grow? What if we stopped treating arts education like a luxury and started treating it like the lifeline it actually is? Emma looked down at her hands on the piano keys, scarred from years of practice. Strong, capable. These hands had pulled her from homelessness. These hands had given her a future. These hands had proved that belonging wasn't about permission. It was about refusing to be invisible. Music saved her life. Not metaphorically, literally. It gave her a reason to keep going when everything else felt hopeless. It gave her a home when she had none. It gave her a voice when the world told her to stay silent. This story isn't special because Emma is special. It's special because it shouldn't be rare. Every kid deserves a chance to discover the thing that makes them feel alive, to find a passion that gives them purpose, to claim space in a world that says they don't belong. The concert hall for her upcoming recital would be filled with people from all walks of life. Wealthy donors sitting next to former foster kids, classical music purists next to first-time concert goers, people who looked like her and people who didn't, all united by one thing, the belief that music belongs to everyone. Emma hadn't won that competition because she was the best technically. She'd won because she played like her life depended on it, because it did. And somewhere out there right now, another kid in foster care is discovering an instrument for the first time, feeling the same thing Emma felt that night in Mrs. Martin's basement. This is home. This is where I belong, at the Keys to Home program. Maya now practices 4 times a week. Last month, she told Emma, when I play piano, I don't feel like a foster kid anymore. I just feel like me. That sentence alone made every struggle worth it. Help us make sure more kids get the same chance Emma did. Not out of pity, not out of charity, but because talent has no address. Genius has no bank account, and art belongs to everyone brave enough to claim it. Keys to Home provides free music education to foster youth across New York City. We offer instruments, lessons, practice space, and mentorship. We've served 40 students this year. Our goal is 200 next year. But we need support. Visit our website to learn more, volunteer as a tutor or mentor, donate instruments or funds, spread the word to social workers, foster families, and schools. Every child deserves a home. And sometimes that home isn't a place, it's a passion. For every foster child still searching for home, you are worthy, you are talented, you belong. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Emma's story proves something crucial, that the greatest barrier between talent and success isn't ability. It's opportunity. And when we remove that barrier, when we give kids the tools they need to express themselves, magic happens. The person who thinks they don't belong is often exactly the person the world needs to hear from most. The voice that's been silenced might be the one with the most important message. The kid told to stay small might be the one destined to fill the largest stages. Emma Rodriguez walked into an audition 1 year ago with nothing but a thrift store dress and a dream that everyone said was impossible. Today, she's a Juilliard student, an award-winning pianist, and the founder of a program changing lives. But more importantly, she's proof. Proof that zip codes don't determine destiny. Proof that bank accounts don't measure worth. Proof that the system that said you don't belong was wrong. If this story moved you, share it. Not because Emma needs recognition, she has plenty now. Share it because somewhere, a foster kid is scrolling through their phone right now, feeling invisible, feeling worthless, feeling like their dreams are stupid. That kid needs to know about Emma, needs to know that someone like them made it, needs to know that their voice matters, their talent is real, and their dreams are valid. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that challenge assumptions about success, talent, and who deserves opportunities. Like this video if you believe that art and music education should be accessible to all children, not just the privileged few. And remember, every time you support arts education for underserved communities, you're not just giving a kid a hobby, you're giving them a home, a voice, a future. Because that's what music did for Emma Rodriguez, and that's what it can do for thousands of kids just like her. Kids who are waiting right now for someone to believe in them the way Dr. Ashford believed in Emma. Don't let them wait any longer. The sound of Emma's piano faded into silence, but the echo remained. Just like her story, it would resonate long after the notes stopped playing, inspiring the next generation of kids who dared to dream beyond their circumstances. Because in the end, belonging isn't about where you come from. It's about having the courage to claim where you're going. And Emma Rodriguez was just getting started.